intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey there, StarCraft Fleet Command fans. Welcome back to the video. And I want to talk about something that we don't talk about a ton on this channel, but with more and more people getting into that area, it felt like now is finally the time. And today we're going to talk about which 5-star ship that you should go after in the game in terms of what's going to benefit you in hostile grinding and armadas, etc. So which of these 3 babies? And yes, I'm focusing in on the rares, the Crozier, Sanctus, and Sompek. Why am I doing that? Well, I guess to answer that question, we have a little bit of a brief history lesson when it comes to Star Trek Fleet Command. So if you actually pull up your ships and menu and take a look at the old ships, you know, the way back in the day, what you find is a theme. Rares in a bracket typically are going to be hostile based. Take a look at the Gladius, for example. 35% bonus to damage against hostiles. Now this has very little impact at all, you know, basically no impact in today's game, but when it came out, that was something that was big for the Intrepid, Gladius, etc. They were made for hostile grinding. If you actually swap over, go Explorer, and you find one of my favorites, the Burrell, same thing. Negative to hostile weapons damage for the first round. Wasn't honestly the strongest one, but it was there. Then you get to what for a lot of players is considered some of the best ships in the game, the rare 46s, like the Pilum, the Coronar, and the Newton, because they all share the same ability, and it's a variation of this one. My Pilums is called Empire Tax, gaining 70% more resources from hostiles. Now, at face value, you might go, well, why is that important? Because that 70% includes rep. And if you remember, the rep locks in the game go 10 million lock, 1 billion lock, and then 15 billion lock. And that doesn't count what it could grow to when they do release 6-star here in the future, and maybe even the near future. So we need to take that into account as we go into this, what's best for those type of runs. And if you take a look, you'll see the same type of loadout here on the Coronar. So if you're a player coming into the 40s, because where we're at right now is the average player in the game is between 35 and 45, pushing into the 40s. And this is why the 46 is so big. Not only are they great at armadas and PvP, they also are tremendously good against or in PvE. So that's why they get such a focal point for so many players. But let me bring back on the screen the image of these 3 right here. The Crozier, the Sanctus, and the Sompek. Now they each have different abilities. You can see kind of on the screen. There's one that they're all good, okay? Let me just say very clearly, I think they're all effective ships. None of them are bad. I'm not looking at any of them and going, wow, this is trash. I never want to go after it. Like, this is a stupid ability. But, for example, take a look at the Crozier's ability right there at the top. Decreases hostile critical hit damage by 2% the first 5 rounds. Now, that does scale up, as you see. That's what the bar at the top is. So if you had a level 10 Crozier, then that would be 17%. But the key is, do you actually have a ton of like power there, value there? As in, do you actually end up having a lot of hostiles that are overloaded in crits? Well, currently not really. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't exist or can't happen, but that is just not really prevalent in the game. Take a look at the Sompek. The Sompek special ability is when fighting hostiles, decreases the armor piercing, shield piercing accuracy by 12% for 5 rounds of combat. That one actually I think is better than the Croziers, but it will vary based on the hostiles you're fighting. Most hostiles don't come out with huge critical abilities and critical damage, but some of them do, so you can have value. The main thing I'm pointing out here is that these ships are obviously geared towards PvE. That they're obviously geared towards those hostile hunting situations. But the one that I think is the best is actually in the top corner of your screen, and that would be the Sanctus. Now, why do I like the Sanctus? Well, read that ship ability for me real quick. Do you see how it talks about shield stripping? That is huge. And now, if you're not familiar with that as a concept, well, go back to the days of Yuki as an officer. Many of you maybe have not used Yuki in quite some time. Well, Yuki was able to, and still is able to, just directly strip shields. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all this off the screen, and we're going to rotate this out, and then I'm actually, I don't do this very often. We're going to take a look at my Sanctus, my biggie. So here's my Sanctus. You can see here's my Drain the Empire. When fighting hostiles, the Sanctus, it decreases the hostile shield health by 13% at the beginning of each round for the first 5 rounds. So that means maximum is going to, take what? 65%, right? So that means that the shields should go away. Now we know that when the shields go, you're going to put all that damage that's not mitigated directly to hull. So here, let's go to the battle log real quick, and let's take a freebooter interceptor, for example. Look over on the right side, you'll notice that the bar where you would have shields is empty. There's nothing there. It has stripped the shields and beat it. So why is that big? Why is that valuable? Because anything that has shields, like for example, the Sanctus right here, shields stop 80% of any non-mitigated damage. So if there was a 1 million shot and 30% was mitigated, that means there's 700,000 damage left. And then the shields would stop 80% of that. So 700,000 times 0.8. And then that's what would go down to the hull. But if you've taken the shields away, all 700,000 of that would go to the hull. Now that 700,000 is a very low shot. I'm just giving you an easy number to understand. So the value of the Sanctus as a hostile grinder is that it can take away the shields just like Yuki can. And as it tiers up, the stronger that ability comes. And that becomes pretty universal. Even if a hostile has, say, you know, really, really good critical damage, which again, not great critical damage and low critical chance here on these freebooters. But even if it did, we're going to strip the shields and not worry about it because we're going to get those down quick, early, and these battles aren't going to last very long. At least that's the intent, right? And that's the value of the Sanctus. Now, the other part that comes into the Sanctus is how much does it actually cost to level it up? Well, my recommendation for faction ships at both 4-star and 5-star is the 579 method. Tier 5 will handle everything that you needed to do in terms of PvE while also having really good warp range. So if you have a tier 5 Sanctus, for example, it has a warp range, I think, of 455, and that doesn't count any research or any options. 455. Here's what a tier 7 would cost. So here are my strategies, just to remind you. Tier 5 is just generalized PvE usage. You want to get good in the game. You want to do all the things. But you're not worried about being perfect, but you'll still be solid in Armadas. Tier 7 is where you want to go if you actually want to be really good at Armadas. And then if you're crazy, you take it to tier 9 to really start taking advantage of PvP because you have extra officer slots and different things that you can really do. Though I do acknowledge that PvP is it's a thing right now in the game. PvP is, oh man, PvP is something at the moment. It is definitely something. But as you saw, like I've got a tier 4 Sanctus, so I haven't even made it to my tier 5 set yet, but 579 being the general idea. But you can see why there's the overall cost of a tier 7 Sanctus with not bad 4,000 epic gas, but woo-wee, 270,000 uncommon 5-star gas is a little bit of a wow. Not to mention the 1.26 million ship parts. You see, one of those primes we talk about being so valuable are so valuable. So we talk about the value of what you can go for in the game. I think any of the rares are going to be kind of like the focal points at each stage, because whether you're a free-to-play player or a spender, they all have the same type of value, as in every day we have to grind in the game. We have to PvE in the game, whether it's going after hostiles for dailies for factions, freebooter hostiles, queue trial hostiles. All of these have a level of difficulty that we have to acknowledge, right? We have to sit there and say that, look, if we're going to beat this, we have to have what's designed to be the best applicable, ship. And I think the rares tend to be that because the game continually designs the rares to be that. Every time this comes out, the rares are the ones that get the predominant focus for hostile abilities. And all three of these have these. And I think there are situations where any of them could be more valuable. I tend to lean, though, and having talked to a lot of my other high levels, not just running the Sanctus on my account, because I have the Sompek and the Sanctus. I've compared them both, and I tend to value the Sanctus. Now, there are advantages to going for a battleship like the Crozier. If y'all haven't checked out battleships before, they typically have more hull health, so more survivability. They last longer, things like that. But the Sanctus's ship ability, which is why we usually focus on these for 46s, the ship ability itself simply has the most oomph to it. And by the way, if you are curious, well, hey, Rev, does that ability work, say, on Q's trials? Glad you asked. Yes, it does. Now, I happened to destroy that Q trial before it even had a chance to do, but see the black bar right there works on Q's trial. So no matter the hostile, I think that the Sanctus provides a player a pretty significant advantage if you're looking for which rare ship in the 5-star area space to go after. Probably also help with rep grinding later on. If you enjoyed the video, well, you know what to do. Leave a like, leave a comment, say nice things, or say anything right there. It helps out the channel, believe it or not. Just leave a comment and like the video. Helps out. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with the Space Cowboys. Deuces. That's me. Catch you in the next one, and hope you enjoyed our Sanctus video. Shout out to the Sanctus. I know I want to go more Klingon, but damn it, they keep giving the Romulans the good stuff.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.